एकदम आवाज नहीं कर सकता है.
So we are reading Hands of Light by Barbara Brennan. We are on chapter 24, page number 243 of the book and page number 258 of the PDF.
Chapter 24, Healing Trans-Temporal Traumas. Many people at a certain point along their spiritual path begin to have trans-temporal experiences that are referred to as past life experiences. Someone may be meditating and remember being another person in another era. Someone else, in doing deep therapy work of re-experiencing traumas from this lifetime, may suddenly find themselves reliving a trauma that was experienced in another lifetime.
Okay, so this is very important, right? As we start expanding our levels of consciousness, this is something that starts to happen to people where they start actually remembering things from technically what they call the past life, right? In my view, there is no past life. Everything is happening at this point in time. Wherever we are placing our attention, that is what becomes real for us, right? Now, this started happening to me and I had a hard time with it because I started being able to assess what was the my relationship with people in other lifetimes, so-called lifetimes. So someone who's my friend today was my mother in another lifetime. Someone who's my friend's son was my father. Someone who's a friend was a guru. Someone else was some person was my wife. Some person was my father, some person was my sister, some person was my brother, some person was my employee, some person had actually cheated me, someone had stabbed me in the back, you know. So all these things started to come up and it became pretty difficult to, be in that state because you started relating to that person in the way that you had related to that person in the previous lifetime. But at a conscious level, that other person is not in that same state of consciousness. So they do not understand what and why are you behaving in a particular way. So it can become pretty harrowing, but we need to understand that this can happen. Once we understand that it can happen, then we can manage it in a much better manner.
Bhaiya, can I ask you one thing? Why do people want to find out about what happened in the past life? Like see, exactly what you're saying it is very true because I mean, if we can live this life only is
correct. So many people feel that, a lot of their issues that they are having is coming from a past life. Plus, it has become a fad also, right? Literally, really speaking, when you start being able to access Focus 15, everything becomes available to you immediately. आप Gateway Voice किए नहीं ना अभी तक?
नहीं, I haven't done it yet.
You need to join Gateway Voice, then you'll understand what Focus 15 is, and this stuff will become like, chicken feed to you, to be frank with you. Are you understanding what I'm saying?
Just basically trying to find out about people say it. No, but they say they can heal. It gets healed. But I feel what you said is more true about it. So I've never been interested in that.
So the point becomes that, many times certain things are there in your biofield, which are coming from previous experiences, right? Now, if something has hurt you in a previous lifetime and you're carrying that hurt in this lifetime, or the resonance is still there in your biofield, then that kind of thing can keep manifesting in your life. Now, when you go and experience it firsthand and you understand it from a different level of consciousness, then that thing can be eradicated. This is the same thing that we are doing in biofield tuning also, where when we are doing the timeline, right, we come into incidences in your life. And once you clear that here, it creates a big shift in your life in the present time. And this is we are experiencing in biofield tuning all the time now. People who have been doing the tuning, they are experiencing really big shifts in their life. Life starts to shift. So in the same way, it can past life regression can also help you. But what I'm saying is you don't need a therapist to do it. You can access it on your own. This is what I'm saying. And when you can access it on your own, you have more control over the situation, and your understanding of the situation can also be much better and much more enhanced. Okay. Workshop gateway join kariye.
I want cards. Next.
Trans-temporal experience probably cannot be completely defined due to our limited sense of time and space. I personally think that the term past life is a very limited way to define such an experience as we have seen in Chapter 4. Both physicists and mystics agree that time is not linear, nor space, only three-dimensional.
Shimangla, your voice is cracking. Right. So again, she's mirroring exactly what I said, right? Past life experiences are very limited. We need to expand our scope. And this can be done when we are going into expanded states of consciousness, and especially focus 15 and above. You can actually start really viewing it in a totally different manner. Because when we go into these expanded states, we transcend time and space, the way that we connect with it or the way that we perceive it when we are living in this 3D environment that we call, that the three-dimensional environment that we are living in.
Many writers have spoken of multidimensional and multi-temporal reality existing within each other. Einstein speaks of a time-space continuum where all things of the past and future exist now, somehow interwoven in multidimensional reality. Isaac Bentov says that linear time is only a fabrication of the third dimensional reality into which I'm trying to squeeze this book.
So again, the three-dimensional reality that we exist in is technically not real, right? When we go into expanded states, we actually start to really understand that this is not real. And this is what is said in all our Vedantic texts and all that also, that all that we are experiencing is actually Maya. We need to get into expanded states to really understand and how to transcend the game of Maya. And that is the basic essence of all spiritual practices.
Exercise to experience non-linear time. In his book, Stalking the Wild Pendulum, he gives an exercise to illustrate this point. Sit quietly in meditation with a watch or clock clearly within visible range so that all you have to do is slightly slit your eyes to see the second hand as it moves around with each minute. When you have reached a high state of consciousness in your meditation, simply slit open your eyes and look at the second hand on the clock. What has happened? Many people have the experience of this hand either completely stopping or drastically slowing down. Of course, as soon as you can see this, your emotional reaction will probably pull you back into your normally comfortable reality of linear time, and the second hand will jump forward and resume its normal rate of movement. What has happened here? Bentov says that time is experienced subjectively, not linearly, and that we create a supposed linear time structure for convenience.
So again, what is this implying, right? When we are going into in the excursion workshop, in the gateway voyage, etc., we'll always tell you that you're going into a state of no time, right? Now, the exercise size is the same for all participants, but some participants experience the exercise as very long, and some participants experience the exercise as very short, right? Now, according to linear time, the time is the same, but what is the experience of the experiencer? That is what is important. So this is again something that people have been experiencing when they go into focus 15. that time can get stretched. In fact, I experienced it in the morning. I was late. I had a 7:30 appointment and it was already 7:10 when I went in for a shower and to get ready, right? I thought I'm going to be late. I actually went into Focus 15, and by the time I finished everything that I normally do, it was only 7:23. Normally it takes me 45 minutes. It happened in 15 minutes and I don't know how, to be frank with you, right? So when we shift our states of consciousness, the way that we experience time can also shift.
Both Edgar Cayce and Jane Roberts speak of multidimensional reality, where all our past and future are being lived now, each in its own dimension, and say that each personality in each dimension is a part of an expression of a greater soul or greater being.
So what does this mean, right? We exist in a multiverse. We don't exist only in this universe that we are perceiving. And aspects of ourselves are available everywhere in every dimension, right? And many times, when you have, when you're doing shamanism and you're going into altered states, the shaman will retrieve a part of your soul, which has got somewhere else, and bringing it. It's called soul portion retrieval, right? When we are going into in the Lifeline program and we are going into retrieving souls, etc., a big part of the entire program is retrieving parts of yourself which you have lost and forgotten in various dimensions. That can also start getting integrated into your own personality. Yes, Renuji?
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't understand this. How can we lose a part of us and they are in different,
Okay, so since you've been growing up, right, do you remember what you did in kindergarten?
No, there's lots of things one has forgotten.
Correct. So that's part of you that you've lost.
But it is there somewhere.
It is there somewhere. So now if you want, suppose there's a memory, you can't remember something, right? It is there in the field, but you can't consciously remember it. So when we are retrieving the part of you, it means that you're bringing that conscious memory back into your system so that it becomes a part of you again. So here we are talking, when we were talking about only a memory being lost of this current lifetime, now technically you've had many experiences. So again, because of the lack of a way of explaining this, you've had tens of thousands of lifetimes and you've experienced a lot in those lifetimes, right? But currently you don't remember what you've experienced in those lifetimes. Now, if it is relevant for you to what you are experiencing in this current lifetime, if you can retrieve that experience from another lifetime, it can help you in this lifetime. नहीं समझ में आया?
Okay, it's okay, bhaiya.
For example, you were playing a game when you were in class 10, right? You were very good at playing that game.
Okay.
Now you're 60 years old. That time you were 20 years old or 16 years old, right? Now you want to play the same game. Don't you think that if you can go back in time and retrieve those experiences that you had when you were 16 years old and you were an expert in playing in that game and bringing it back, that expertise back to the situation that you're in now, don't you think your efficiency level in playing the game will improve now?
That means one normally says that one hasn't forgotten how to play because you have played earlier. So,
correct, but many times you forget, right? Okay. But if you can retrieve that memory, like Ushaji did it for the memory encoding, right? You couldn't sleep. Now you remembered when you slept well. You brought that memory back into the now, and you slept well now.
Right? Now I got it. Now I got it.
So,
I got it with this example.
Yeah. So what is the thing, right? We are going back to a particular experiencing, bringing it back here so that we can use that experience in this point in time.
And that is the same thing which has happened with all our lives, and
exactly
we can bring everything back.
Correct. So over here, what is she saying? Speaks of multi-dimensional realities where all our past and futures are being lived now. So we are operating in multi-dimensional universes. The thing is that consciously we are focusing our attention in this reality. If I shift my conscious focus to another reality, I will be existing in that reality. For example, you close your eyes. Okay. Imagine you've been to the Eiffel Tower some time back.
Yeah.
Now you close your eyes and imagine you're in Eiffel Tower. Now where are you? Are you in Eiffel Tower? Are you here?
Okay.
Have you got that? That's the basic game.
Thank you, Bhaiya. Thank you.
According to Roberts, we can penetrate into these other dimensions or lives to bring knowledge and understanding for transformation. By doing this dimension or our present lives can transform our other lives and dimensions. Or, said in more popular terms, how we live now in what we call this life affects both our past and future lives.
So what does this mean? How we are acting now will have a resonance effect on all our lives, right? And also, when we experience something that we've experienced previously and bring it back here and then transform it here, again, it will have a resonance in all our lives. And in fact, PHM Atwater, she's written a book, Future Memory. If we can have memory of the past, why can't we have memory of the future, right? Because as is mentioned over here, that Edgar Cayce and Jane Roberts are saying that everything is happening now, right? So by doing this, in this dimension, our present lives can be transform our lives in other dimensions. So what we are doing now here affects every other life or experience that we are having.
All of these things are quite hard to understand, but they serve to help point out and challenge the limitations in our thinking about the nature of reality.
So the way we experience reality is actually very, very limited, right? But when we go into expanded states, our experience of reality starts to get stretched. And that is what we are working on in all the processes that we are doing in awareness.
On the therapeutic and healing levels, I have found working with past lives very effective when handled in a manner in which the transformation process is kept as the main objective.
Now, this is very important, right? What are we going into past lives for? What is the intent becomes very, very important, right? Over here, he is saying very clearly that we are going into those states of consciousness, or we are going into those past lives basically to create a transformational effect in this life. It is not going for parlor games just to see acha, what is happening, right? There is a clear intent and objective to why we are doing something.
It is not something to play with or to use to boost the ego. We all would rather think of ourselves as having been a great queen or leader of some sort, rather than a peasant, beggar, murderer, etc.
So again, most people, when they go to past life, they are something great, right? But that normally is not the case. How many people, how many kings are there vis-a-vis the normal subjects, right? So the probability of you being a normal person is much more much higher probability than you being a great personality. But most people who go into past life will say, I was this, I was that, and I'm great personality, right? But that, according to me, that can never be the truth. Most people are very mundane and normal people.
That is not at all the point. The usefulness of re-experiencing past lives is clearly to free the personality from problems that now hold us back from attaining our greatest potentials and from completing our life's work or life tasks.
Now, this is important, right? Why are we dwelling into those states? To get tools into this point in time where we are existing in this 3D reality to help us to clear the baggage that we are carrying with us, the rocks in the backpack, so that we can achieve what we've really come here to achieve, to help us to do what we've really come here to do, to go according to the plan, to clear the shaft so that we can be ourselves and make a deeper connection with ourselves.
Problems related to past life experiences always relate to what the personality is dealing with in this present life. When the past life memory is unearthed in a natural and non-forcing way.
Now, again, this is important, right? Many times we are forcing a memory to come up. Over here, it happens that, yes, I connect with a past life, which I have experienced, or there was some cause and effect over there, which created a cause and effect in the experience that we are experiencing now, so that it can help transform it. This is something that we find when we are doing biofield tuning also. Certain stuff took place when you were 6 years old, and that is coloring your entire relationship. Just yesterday, I was doing a tuning for one person, and I found at 15, as soon as that person was born, there was a rejection of that person by the family, the elders in the family, because that person was not fair. The person was dark, right? Until today, the person is like 45 years or 48 years old, and the relationship with the parents is still strained. It started when that child was just born, right? Because the child was rejected when the child was born. So likewise, and now he needs to transcend that, right? He needs to understand that whatever happened at that time is not relevant anymore. But if he keeps holding on to that, then he'll never repair his relationship with his parents. And now it is going down generations. So his son is also behaving with him like in the same way. So the point is that when we clear something at one point in time, it has a domino effect and clears the whole matrix, starts to get cleared. That's the importance of these transpersonal healing processes.
This is a very important fact that must be kept in mind by the healer or therapist, whose job it is to make sure that the inter-life connection is made. Past life memory may then be applied to this life's circumstances to help heal this life's problems.
So we are taking the lessons learned in that previous lifetime, or for that matter now in even the future lifetime, to heal what is happening right now, to create a transformation in the entire life of a person concerned, or a soul, I would say.
Some therapists will spontaneously see a past life of a client when they are making body contact with the client, for example, in a mothering type therapy where the therapist holds the client the way a mother would hold a child. The therapist can then utilize this information by weaving it into a session in a sensitive manner.
So again, this is important, right? When a therapist is treating a patient, the therapist can be in an altered state of consciousness, and a lot of downloads can start taking place. Now, it depends on the skill of the therapist, and this is something that can be learned, to open yourself to get downloads, that you can weave it into the way that you're giving the lesson to the client, to be able to help the client use this information that you are downloading as a therapist, so that they can create transformation in their life.
Seeing the healing and past life trauma. Seeing and healing past life trauma. There are three major ways that I see and heal past life trauma, each related to what level or levels of the aura on which the healing is done. all levels from the etheric on down are affected by past life trauma. In the first 4 auric levels, a past life trauma looks like a normal energy block in the field. On the etheric and ketheric template levels, it shows up as a structural problem. And in addition, on the ketheric, the past life shows up as a ring or band in the eggshell level of the field.
So again, how does it show up? What are you looking at? And how can you repair it? It is said that our age-old seers, our gurus and maharishis, they could actually see the aura, go into an altered state, pick out stuff from the aura, which is not required, and put things back into the aura that was required. That's how they used to do transformational healing. This is exactly what she's saying. In the lower levels of the auric field, it seems like there are blocks and you just cleared them. But in the higher levels of the auric field, there are structural problems. There are integral problems which are there, which need to be smoothened out and repaired.
To see a past life, I may just be given the past life scene relevant to the present healing situation or illness as the client is speaking with me.
Now, this is again very important, where the therapist is getting a download, but the download is connected with whatever is being dealt with, right? So relevant information for the particular session many times starts to get downloaded in these sessions.
Or I may hold my hands on a particular block and then see the past life. To read the past lives related to the bands in the eggshell level, I simply put my hands in the band and see the pictures of the past life. I will now describe these 3 methods of healing in more detail.
So again, when you make a connection with a block, right, the block automatically starts to give you information. This is something that we're finding in biofield tuning also. When we come to a block, the information automatically starts to come. Okay, you shifted a house, you had a sibling, you had a fight with someone died, someone shifted, you went to a new school, you had this, you had that, someone treated you badly, whatever. Everything starts to get downloaded when you put when you come into connection with the particular block. And of course, when you touch it, you touch someone, again, psychometry, right? You touch a ring and all the information about whoever wore that ring starts to download. So this is something like that. When you put your hand or you come into connection with these higher levels in the aura, automatically you start getting downloads also.
Healing past life blocks in the lower 4 levels of the aura. A method of clearing past life blocks, which I learned from P.T. Peterson at the Healing Light Center in Glendale, California, is very effective in removing past life trauma that has been blocking a person's freedom in this life. This kind of work really addresses the blocks from this lifetime first. The healer focuses energy into the block. This starts energy moving out of the block, and usually the trauma is released. The first layers will be blocks that occurred in this lifetime. Then, after they are cleared, the traumas from other lifetimes are uncovered and worked with in the same manner. The healer must be experienced with and be able to handle very strong, painful, fearful, or angry feelings in the client in order to do this work. The healer must be there for the client through all types of feelings that are experienced and gone through. The healer must not withdraw her energy if affected by these strong feelings, but must continue to be there, steadily running a supportive foundation energy that sustains the client through the experience so that he can complete and clear it.
So this is very, very important. As a therapist or a healer, holding space is one of the most important processes in any healing modality. If a healer and therapist cannot hold space, then you better not be doing healing, because then the client can get badly affected, right? If the healer starts getting affected by what is being experienced by the healee or the patient or the client, then the healer is not ready to heal, right? The healer has to be able to maintain his or her own center in spite of whatever is happening. If you start getting your shit into the matter of the healing, then you are creating a problem for the patient or the client as well as for yourself. So you have to be able to separate your issues with the what you're treating in the client. Many times what will happen is that you will start experiencing, or the client will experience something which has a resonance with you, right? And it depends on your inner resilience and equanimity and ability to hold your center, that you hold yourself and don't get affected by that thing while the session is on, right? So again, I'm repeating, holding space, being present is one of the most powerful therapeutic tools that is available to us right now. I mean, many a times, people don't want advice. They just want someone to be able to listen to what they are saying. That itself becomes very, very therapeutic. So again, holding space is extremely important.
To do this, one begins a healing in the normal manner with alignment. Chapter 22. And balancing the three energy systems of client, healer, and UEF guides. Then during the chelation, the healer will become aware of the blocks in the system. The healer is led through intuition or guidance to the block which is appropriate to concentrate on in that particular session.
Now, this is important. Many times what we find is that the client wants to direct how the session will go. That actually lands up creating a problem, because when we connect into the universal energy field, the universal energy field knows more than what we know, right? So it's the concept of the small guy and the big guy. So when we allow the session to go through, whatever needs to come out in that particular session will automatically come out. If you're attempting to deal with a specific issue at that specific time, then you're stuck. You're limiting the entire healing process. I like an open field healing system where we are going in, whatever shows up in that particular day and at that particular time, we simply deal with it, right? Rather than wanting to direct things in the way that, okay, aise hi hoga, yeah, I want to deal with this only. Because we are operating from the small guy. We're not operating from the big guy.
To do this, one begins a healing in the normal method with alignment and balancing the three energy systems of client, healer, and UEF guides. Then, during the chelation, the healer will become aware of the blocks in the system. The healer is led through intuition or guidance to the block which is appropriate to concentrate on in that particular session. The healer then lays hands on that area of the body and runs energy into that area. Many times, the left hand is on the back of the body and the right hand on the front. After a good amount of energy is flowing, the healer will ask the client to allow his memory to open and go back to the first time the client put the block there.
So this is very important. For any kind of healing, it becomes important that we go to the point of origin. When did the issue start? What was the seed? When was the seed planted? Because if we want to heal something, we have to take it from the inception, right? Otherwise, it will not heal. You're healing from the middle. This will heal, but the seed is still there. It will come back. The roots are still there. It's like a plant. If you want to remove like a banyan plant growing on buildings, you want to remove it, you can't just pull it. You have to make sure that all the roots also come out. If the roots are there, again, the plant will come back.
The healer continues to run energy into the block backward in time. The healer usually gets pictures of the event in question as the client is trying to remember.
So, right. So what also happens in the healer, many times you'll get feelings, sometimes you'll get a smell, sometimes you'll get a taste, but many times it's like a movie playing in front of your eyes that this is what is happening to the client.
The client will also either see pictures or go into a feeling state or both that relates to the experience. It may then re-experience that trauma fully, as if living through it again, or he may just see the experience as an observer.
Now, this also happens. Some people start feeling it, really feeling it in them. The other person takes a witness attitude and actually experiences what was happening as a witness.
The healer may or may not tell the client what the healer sees, depending on whether or not it is appropriate to do so. It is not always appropriate, especially if the client does not see it. The healer must always respect the client's energy system, which is what determines how much information the client can tolerate about any given trauma.
So this is important, right? The healer has to use his or her own intelligence and guidance from the big guy as well as the helping spirits, etc., who are coming, the guides who are coming in, as to what needs to be told to the client, right? Many times not telling something to the client is the better thing for the client than telling the client everything. That intelligence has to be worked on. That experience comes with experience.
If, however, the client re-experiences the trauma, it is always good for the healer to verify the information through the healer's gift of seeing. The timing of discovery is very important in these things. When past life information is uncovered in the right moment, it will help the person understand himself and learn to love themselves better. If it is done with the wrong timing, it can enhance a person's negativity either towards self or others.
So, see, this is why it is very important for us to get guidance from people who know more than us, people who are operating at a higher state of consciousness than us. These are the guides, these are the masters, these are the helping spirits who actually come and guide you as to what to do. Or they take over your body and allow you to, you have to allow them to work through you. That's why we need to put the ego aside. When we are doing the healing, the ego has to be kept aside. It is not us doing the healing. It is the field which is doing the healing. And that's when again the shift starts to take place. When you're doing it from an egocentric basis, you can land up creating problems because you're operating from limited intelligence, limited information. When we operate from the big guy, we always know more than what the small guy knows.
For example, if the person has done something very violent to another person in a past life, he may not be able to handle knowing about it in this lifetime without placing great guilt upon himself. If he knows the victim in this lifetime, the present life situation may be made worse because of guilt. Or if the situation is reversed and the patient is a past life victim of someone he knows in this lifetime, he may find himself increasing and justifying a grudge he may already be holding against that person.
So again, that's why we have to work with these things intelligently. What happened at that time happened. We need to learn the lesson from that and apply it from the right side of the grid in this lifetime. If we go into the left side of the grid when we are experiencing these things, it is better not to experience it in my view, right? Because you'll end up creating more problems for you, for yourself, rather than solutions.
After the trauma is experienced at whatever level was appropriate, the healer asks the client if he is ready to give it up and let it go. If the answer is yes, the healer removes it from the field by scooping it out. The process of experiencing the trauma has loosened it from the field, so it is easy to remove. Both the healer and the client fill the open, clear area where the trauma was with unconditional love, which is a rose-colored light, working through the heart chakra as discussed in chapter 23.
It is important to understand that when we do something with intention, when we do something with awareness, when we do something with understanding, the process is always more effective, right? So a trauma is coming up. Many times a person does not want to let go of a trauma, right? If you force it, then you're creating another problem. So if the healer and the patient are working together and they are on the same page, the healing will always be more powerful and more effective. Now, this is something that we do in the exercise in the excursion workshop, which is called release and recharge, where you're releasing certain fears that you had. And many times what happens is when you're doing that exercise, certain events will pop up into your conscious awareness, which you do not even remember. And when you release them, it can cause a big shift in the way that you're dealing with life itself, right? And in that exercise also, we are again reintegrating the light that was stuck because of that particular trauma in your system. Once the trauma of fear is released and the emotion associated with it is released, a lot of opening up and filling up of that space which is vacated with bright and powerful energies can start to happen. So I think one of the most powerful exercises in the excursion is release and recharge, which again we've not been pushing, but now I think this is something that needs to be taken up more seriously.
The client may say no to the question of letting the trauma go. This means there is more to be experienced and he is not finished with it. Or the healer may see more work to be done. The healer begins the process of running energy again and helping the client to experience more of the trauma. The healer increases both intensity and frequency of the energy she or he runs into the block. This is repeated until the area has cleared and the client is ready to let it go and allow the area to fill with the rose light of unconditional love.
So again, the healer has to be aware of what is happening, what is required. The client also has to act about things from awareness, right? Whether they want to let it go, they don't want to let it go, whether a further lesson is to be learned from that particular incident, from that particular experience, from that particular trauma that has come up in the field during the particular healing.
If the area has not cleared, there is usually another trauma sitting under the first that was experienced.
So this is something that I've experienced many times, even when we are doing Vastu energy field clearing in a space. Everything is like layers, you have one beneath the other, beneath the other, beneath the other. We are multi-dimensional beings again, right? So you clear, it's like onions. So you clear one, another will come up. You clear another, another will come up. You clear one, another will come up. So until you have cleared that entire sequence, the entire matrix, real healing will not take place.
I have seen as many as 5 traumas from different lifetimes layered upon each other in the same area of the body.
So again, from different lifetimes, right? So again, different areas of the aura, of the auric field, different layers of the auric field, and different because you have a resonance to a particular trauma, you have a resonance to a particular situation, which you've experienced in previous lifetimes. Again, for lack of a better way to explain it. But that resonance will cause you to behave in that same manner. So another example that we keep using when I'm describing biofield tuning, let us say when you were 4 years old, you had a big fight with a very dear friend of yours and it really affected you badly. Now that trauma is hanging in your field, right? Now that trauma, because it was related to friendship, will influence any friendship that you have going forward. So it becomes very important to clear this trauma if you want your current friendships to behave in a way which is congenial to you. Otherwise, it is going to result in the same thing. That's where patterns also start getting formed in our system. So that's why there are many layers of the same kind of trauma, one after the other in the auric field.
These 5 layers after the client had cleared the layers of trauma from this lifetime. In other words, the traumas that are experienced by a person are laid down in the field on top of each other, probably chronologically. When you clear one trauma, the next is left uncovered to be dealt with and cleared. Many times, when a client re-experiences a past life, there is a very strong field effect called a direct current, DC field, shift by Reverend Rosalind Breyer. In this shift, Reverend Breyer says that the whole auric field expands to a much greater size than normal, but still maintains its high vibration rate. Almost twice as much energy stays in the field for about 48 hours, and the client is very vulnerable and impressionable. A great deal of the unconscious memory is opened during this time. So memories continue to flow into the consciousness of the individual. It is very important for him to stay in a quiet, safe, and nourishing environment to allow the healing to continue and complete itself.
So this becomes important here, right? So many times when we are going into these states, right, a lot of stuff starts to come out, and actually there's an expansion, there's a release. Any kind of trauma that is stuck is basically bioflotons which are stuck in the field. And when they start getting released, that bioflotonic energy starts to come into the field and the field will expand, the field will brighten up. But the point is that the release has to be tempered. It has to be done in a way that can be supported by the energy system and the physical body system of the client. That is why it's important to structure the experiences in a way that becomes relevant. Or if it becomes traumatic, then you're putting another trauma in place of the one that you are releasing. So that becomes very important. And then over here, naturally, the person has to be quiet. You have opened up your field, right? So you become very suggestible at that time. You have to have trust on the healer, that the healer is not going to manipulate and do something ulta pulta into your system.
Unpleasant experiences from external sources during this time will affect the individual very deeply and should be avoided. It is time for the field to re-establish healthy flow patterns that, if allowed to stabilize over 48 hours, will become part of the normal flow of the system, thus making the healing permanent. It is important for the healer to know what is happening and to emphasize the importance of the healing period and encourage him to take good care of himself during that time. The power in this time must be respected. This time period is similar to one when someone goes into shock.
Right. So when someone goes into shock, your field is open. You get frozen, right? You can't do anything. And that time a person can be manipulated to do a lot of things because the person's mind is not working. So in the same way, when you're experiencing these traumatic experiences, you have to have clarity of thought and you have to have trust in the healer that they will not manipulate things unnecessarily.
As the client goes backward in time, clearing trauma after trauma, usually starting with this lifetime and going to previous lifetime. The blocked area becomes clearer and clearer. Each layer is filled with the rose light of unconditional love before going on to the next layer to be cleared. Thus, one can see that any natural purification process that clears away body blocks, and most spiritual paths do, will eventually lead to past life clearing. It is very important that the past life clearing be done at an appropriate point in a person's path. That point is reached when a good deal of clearing has already taken place concerning this lifetime, when a lot of the person's personal life is in order and when he would not be so tempted to use past life experiences to avoid issues that need to be dealt with in this lifetime, here and now.
So again, first clear what is happening here and then move into past lives, etc. Many people start getting stuck that, something happened in my past life, that is why I'm experiencing this. But what have you done about it now? What have you done about it in this lifetime? What is the experience that is creating that experience? What are the triggers that are making you react or go into a particular syndrome? These things become very important to observe, right? Before going into past life. Many people will just jump into past life and start blame game, right? वो इसलिए हुआ था इसीलिए ये मेरे साथ हो रहा है. So rather than taking responsibility here, they start blaming what happened previously, which they are not even sure that happened, right? So they have no power over whatever is happening. That's not a powerful way to live life.
As the client goes backward in time,
next paragraph,
trauma, usually starting with this lifetime and going to previous lifetimes, the blocked area becomes clearer and clearer. Each layer is filled with the rose light of unconditional love before going on to the next layer to be cleared. Thus, one can see that any natural purification process that clears away body blocks, and most spiritual paths do, will eventually lead to past life clearing. It is very important that the past life clearing be done at an appropriate point in a person's path. That point is reached when a good deal of clearing has already taken place concerning this lifetime, when a lot of the person's personal life is in order, and when he would not be so tempted to use past life experiences to avoid issues that need to be dealt with in this lifetime, here and now. At the appropriate time, past life clearing can release certain places in a person's life that cannot seem to change, even though a lot of spiritual work has been done to clear them. Then, past life clearing can sometimes initiate dramatic changes in a person's present life.
So again, pulling in lessons from the past life to affect the present life is very powerful effect.
For example, one client who was in a very destructive marriage, where her husband would hurt her physically, was unable to leave the marriage until she re-experienced about 15 past lifetimes where she had been physically abused by men in some form or another. She saw the continuation of her pattern of dependency in which she thought that men have all the power and also all the responsibility. She saw that she lived out her belief in situations that proved men did have more power than she on the physical level. When she saw her pattern and knew she had to face her dependency, stand on her own 2 feet, and face her fear of being alone, she was ready to leave the marriage and rebuild her life. Her life has dramatically changed in the years since this occurrence, and she is free, happy, and healthy. She is letting go of her fear of being alone, and through this is regaining her independence and taking responsibility for her life.
So this becomes important, right? We need to take responsibility for ourselves. If we do not do that, then we lose power. We are not in control. We are not powerful enough, right? So we need to do that. And many times, we learn a lesson. We need to apply what we have learned. Otherwise, there's no point in learning it, right? So in this case, she saw that she was totally dependent on the male, and basically the male had all the power and all the resources, and with that, all the responsibility. So she was responsibility less, which is not a situation that we would like to be in. Right. So we can stop here.